Sometimes the most powerful moments happen when we least expect them. In a world where royal families seem distant and untouchable, living behind palace walls and formal protocols, there comes a rare moment when humanity breaks through all the barriers. This is the story of one such moment. A farewell so genuine, so filled with raw emotion, that it reminded millions of people around the world that beneath crowns and titles, royals are simply human beings with hearts that break, just like ours. It was a goodbye that no royal training could have prepared them for. No amount of protocol could dictate how to say farewell to someone who had been the cornerstone of their family for decades. When the cameras captured that final moment, when dignity met grief, when duty embraced love, the world witnessed something extraordinary. This wasn't just another royal ceremony. This was a family saying goodbye to their beloved matriarch in the most honest way possible. What happened that day would be remembered not for its grandeur, but for its grace. Not for its formality, but for its humanity. This is the story of how one royal family's private pain became a shared moment of healing for an entire nation, and how sometimes the most profound acts of leadership happen not in times of celebration, but in moments of deepest sorrow. The morning mist hung low over Windsor Castle as Queen Elizabeth II walked through the gardens she had tended to for over 7 decades. At 96, her steps were slower now, but her eyes still held the same sharp intelligence that had guided Britain through countless challenges. She paused by the Rose Garden, her favorite spot, where the early morning sunlight filtered through ancient oak trees. This would be one of her final walks through these beloved grounds, though she didn't know it yet. In the weeks leading up to what would become known as one of the most touching farewells in royal history, the Queen had been reflecting more than usual. Her private secretary had noticed how she lingered longer during their daily meetings, sharing stories about her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren that she had never spoken of before. She talked about Prince William's dedication to his family, how he balanced being a future king with being a present father. She spoke of Prince Harry's passionate heart, how his desire to help others sometimes led him down difficult paths, but always came from a place of genuine care. The Queen's relationship with her family had evolved tremendously over the years. In her youth, royal duty often meant emotional distance, formal interactions, and putting the crown before personal relationships. But as she aged, especially after losing Prince Philip, she had begun to soften these boundaries. She started calling her grandchildren more frequently, not to discuss royal duties, but simply to ask about their children, their hopes, their daily lives. Prince William would later recall how these conversations became treasures to him, moments when his grandmother was simply Granny rather than the Queen. During this period, the Queen made several decisions that surprised even her closest advisors. She began privately recording voice messages for each of her family members, sharing memories and expressing feelings she had rarely voiced aloud. For William, she spoke about watching him grow from a shy boy dealing with his mother's death into a man who embodied the best qualities of both his parents. She told him how proud she was of how he protected his children's childhood while preparing them for their future roles. For Harry, her message was filled with understanding and love, acknowledging his struggle with royal life while affirming her belief in his good heart. The Queen also spent considerable time with Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Their relationship had grown remarkably close over the years, and the Queen often said that Catherine reminded her of herself in her younger days, graceful under pressure, devoted to family, and naturally gifted at connecting with people. During their private afternoon teas, the Queen shared stories about her own challenges as a young mother in the public eye, offering guidance that went far beyond royal protocol. She taught Catherine that true royal grace came not from never making mistakes, but from how one handled those mistakes with dignity. As autumn approached, the Queen's health began to decline more noticeably, though she kept this largely private. Her family started visiting more frequently, often bringing the great-grandchildren. These visits brought her immense joy, and she delighted in watching Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis play in the same rooms where she had once played with her own children. She would sit in her favorite armchair, wrapped in a soft tartan blanket, as the children showed her their drawings and told her about their school adventures. Prince William found himself making the journey to Windsor more often, sometimes alone, sometimes with his family. During these visits, he began to notice subtle changes in his grandmother. She moved more carefully, tired more easily, but her mind remained razor-sharp. More importantly, she seemed more at peace than he had seen her in years. She spoke often about Prince Philip, not with sadness, but with a kind of gentle anticipation, as if she was preparing for their reunion. The Queen's household staff, many of whom had served her for decades, also noticed these changes. Her longtime dresser mentioned how the Queen had become more sentimental, often asking to wear jewelry that held special memories rather than pieces chosen for their formal significance. She wore her mother's brooch more frequently, and often touched the simple wedding ring that had never left her fingers since 1947. Her lady-in-waiting observed how the Queen lingered longer over photographs during their daily routines, particularly those of family moments away from official duties. One particular evening stands out in the memories of those close to the Queen. She had gathered several family members for what seemed like an informal dinner, but it felt different somehow. She was more talkative than usual, sharing stories from her childhood, from the early days of her marriage, from watching her children grow up in the unique circumstances of royal life. She spoke about the weight of the crown, but also about the unexpected joys it had brought her, the ability to serve her people, to witness history firsthand, to represent something larger than herself. During this dinner, she looked directly at William and spoke words that would stay with him forever. She told him that being king wasn't about ruling over people, but about serving them with your whole heart. She said that the crown would change him, as it had changed her, but that he should never let it change his core values or his love for his family. She reminded him that his children would need him to be their father first, just as she had learned to be a mother alongside being a queen. The conversation turned to her legacy, though not in the formal sense that historians would later analyze. She spoke about hoping to be remembered as someone who tried her best to serve with honor, who loved her family fiercely despite the constraints of royal duty, and who understood that true leadership meant putting others before yourself. She expressed her deepest hope that the monarchy would continue to evolve, to remain relevant and meaningful to future generations, while never losing sight of its fundamental purpose of service. As the evening wound down, the Queen did something unprecedented. She asked each family member present to share one memory of their time together that meant the most to them. The stories that followed were not about state dinners or royal ceremonies, but about quiet moments, teaching the grandchildren to fish at Balmoral, laughing together over family photos, her gentle guidance during difficult times, her unwavering support when they needed it most. William shared a memory from his childhood, shortly after his mother's death, when the Queen had found him sitting alone in the gardens at Balmoral. Instead of offering formal words of comfort, she had simply sat beside him in silence for a long time, then quietly told him that grief was love with nowhere to go, but that love never really disappears. It just changes form. That moment of quiet understanding had meant more to him than any formal condolences. The Queen listened to each story with tears in her eyes, her usual composed demeanor softened by the love she felt for her family. As the evening ended, she embraced each of them longer than usual, and those present would later remember feeling that she was somehow saying goodbye, though none of them fully understood at the time. In the days that followed, the Queen continued her duties, but with a noticeable difference. She seemed to be savoring each interaction, each moment, as if storing them up for some future need. Her final public appearances took on a special significance that only became clear in hindsight. She was not just fulfilling her royal obligations. She was creating lasting memories, both for herself and for those who would remember her. The stage was being set, though none of them knew it yet, for a farewell that would transcend royal protocol and touch the hearts of millions. The Queen's final weeks were not marked by sadness or regret, but by a deep sense of completion, of love freely given and received, of a life lived in service to something greater than herself. She was preparing, in her own quiet way, to leave behind not just a kingdom, but a legacy of grace that would inspire generations to come. The call came on a Thursday morning in early September, just as Prince William was reviewing his schedule for the day with his private secretary. His grandmother's voice on the other end of the line was weaker than usual, but her words were clear. She wanted to see him as soon as possible. There was something in her tone that made him cancel his appointments immediately and arrange for his helicopter to be prepared for the flight to Scotland, where the Queen was staying at Balmoral Castle. Balmoral had always held special significance for the royal family. It was their private retreat, the one place where they could truly be themselves away from the formalities of court life. The Queen loved it more than any of her other residences, often saying it was where she felt most at peace. As William's helicopter approached the estate, he could see the castle nestled among the Scottish Highlands, its gray stone walls standing strong against the dramatic landscape that had provided comfort to generations of his family. When William arrived, he was struck by how frail his grandmother appeared, though her eyes still sparkled with the intelligence and warmth he had known all his life. She was sitting in her favorite drawing room, surrounded by family photographs and personal mementos that told the story of her remarkable life. She had asked to see him alone first, she explained, because there were things she needed to say while she still had the strength to say them clearly. Their conversation that afternoon would remain private between them, but those close to the family later learned that the Queen had used this time to share her deepest thoughts about the future of the monarchy and her family. She spoke to William not just as her grandson, but as her heir, passing on wisdom that couldn't be found in any constitutional textbook. She talked about the loneliness that could come with the crown, the weight of always being watched, but also about the incredible privilege of serving millions of people who look to the monarchy for stability and continuity. The Queen also shared her concerns and her hopes for her family's future. She worried about Harry living so far away in California and the rift that had developed within the family. She expressed her hope that time would heal these wounds, that love would ultimately prove stronger than misunderstandings and hurt feelings. She asked William to always keep the door open for his brother, to remember that family bonds, while sometimes strained, should never be permanently broken. As evening approached, other family members began to arrive. Prince Charles had driven up from his nearby estate, and soon Catherine arrived with their children. The Queen's face lit up when she saw Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Despite her weakening condition, she insisted on spending time with each of them individually, listening to their stories about school, their friends, and their latest adventures. She wanted to create one more set of precious memories with her great-grandchildren. The atmosphere at Balmoral during those final days was unlike anything the staff had experienced before. While everyone understood the gravity of the situation, there was no sense of gloom or despair. Instead, there was an almost celebratory feeling as family members shared stories, looked through photo albums, and simply enjoyed being together. The Queen herself seemed to be orchestrating these moments, as if she understood that these gatherings would become treasured memories for her family in the years to come. Prince Harry's absence was felt deeply by everyone, especially the Queen. Despite the tensions that had developed over the past few years, she had never stopped loving her grandson or hoping for reconciliation. She asked William to call Harry personally, not through official channels, and invite him to Balmoral. The conversation between the brothers was their first real exchange in months, and while it was brief, it carried the weight of their shared love for their grandmother and their desire to put family before everything else in this moment. Harry began making arrangements to travel from California immediately, though the distance and logistics meant he wouldn't arrive for several hours. The Queen asked to be kept informed of his travel progress, and she seemed to be drawing on reserves of strength to wait for him. During this time, she continued to spend precious moments with the family members who were present, creating an atmosphere of love and connection that transcended the sadness of the approaching farewell. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, proved to be an invaluable source of strength during these difficult hours. Her natural grace and composure helped keep the children calm while allowing them to understand the significance of what was happening. She facilitated conversations between the Queen and her great-grandchildren, helping translate complex emotions into simple, honest exchanges that the children could understand and remember. The Queen's personal physician arrived to provide comfort care, but it was clear that her primary concern was not her physical condition, but ensuring that her family felt surrounded by love and support. She asked for her jewelry box to be brought to her, and she began giving special pieces to family members, not as formal bequests, but as personal gifts shared in the moment. To Catherine, she gave a delicate pearl brooch that had belonged to Queen Mary, telling her that it represented the strength that comes from grace under pressure. As the second evening at Balmoral approached, the Queen's condition began to decline more noticeably, but her spirit remained strong. She asked for all the family members present to gather in her sitting room, where she had spent countless happy hours over the decades. The scene was both heartbreaking and beautiful, a family coming together to say goodbye to their beloved matriarch, knowing that these were the final hours they would share with the woman who had been the constant center of their lives. The conversation during this gathering was filled with expressions of love, gratitude, and cherished memories. The Queen listened to each family member share what her love and guidance had meant to them, and she responded with words of encouragement and blessing for their futures. She reminded them that while her physical presence would soon be gone, her love for them would continue always, and that they should support each other through whatever challenges lay ahead. William found himself thinking about all the times his grandmother had been there for him during his most difficult moments, after his mother's death, during his military service, when he was struggling with the pressures of public life, and as he learned to balance being a father with his royal duties. She had been his anchor, offering wisdom without judgment and love without conditions. The thought of facing the future without her guidance was overwhelming, but her words that evening gave him strength. The Queen also took time to speak privately with Catherine about the unique challenges of being a royal wife and mother. She shared insights about maintaining family life in the public eye, about protecting children while preparing them for their destinies, and about finding personal fulfillment while serving others. These conversations would prove invaluable to Catherine in the years that followed, as she navigated her own path through royal life. As the night progressed, it became clear that Harry might not arrive in time. The Queen, despite her weakening condition, expressed her understanding and her love for her grandson, who was traveling across the ocean to be with her. She asked William to record a voice message for Harry, telling him how much she loved him and how proud she was of the man he had become, despite their recent differences. The family maintained a vigil through the night, taking turns sitting with the Queen and ensuring she never felt alone. The atmosphere was peaceful, filled with quiet conversation, gentle music, and the sense that they were all participating in something sacred, the conclusion of a remarkable life lived in service to others. The Queen drifted in and out of consciousness, but whenever she was awake, she was surrounded by the love of her family. As dawn broke over the Scottish Highlands, painting the castle grounds in soft golden light, it became clear that the Queen's final hours had arrived. The family gathered close, holding her hands, sharing final words of love, and preparing to say goodbye to the woman who had been their guide, their strength, and their inspiration for so many years. The farewell that was about to unfold would become one of the most touching moments in royal history, a testament to the power of love to transcend even death itself. The morning light filtered softly through the heavy curtains of the Queen's bedroom at Balmoral as her family maintained their loving vigil. Prince Charles sat closest to his mother, holding her hand and occasionally whispering words of comfort and love. William stood by the window, looking out at the Highland landscape that his grandmother cherished so deeply, trying to process the magnitude of what was happening. Catherine was with the children in the adjacent sitting room, helping them understand that their great-grandmother was preparing to go to heaven to be with great-grandfather Philip. The queen's breathing had become more labored during the night, but she remained peaceful, occasionally opening her eyes to look at the faces of her loved ones gathered around her. Her personal physician had assured the family that she was comfortable and, without pain, surrounded by the love that had defined her life. The room was filled with quiet conversation, gentle music, and the sense that they were all witnessing something profound and sacred. Around mid-morning, the queen opened her eyes and seemed more alert than she had been for hours. She looked around the room, taking in the faces of her family members, and managed a small smile. In a voice that was weak but clear, she asked if Harry had arrived yet. When told that he was still traveling but would be there soon, she nodded understanding and asked William to come closer. Their final private conversation lasted only a few minutes, but it would stay with William for the rest of his life. What passed between grandmother and grandson in those precious moments would remain between them. But William later shared that she had expressed her complete confidence in his ability to lead with wisdom and compassion. She reminded him that being king was not about wielding power, but about serving others with humility and grace. Most importantly, she told him that she was proud of the man, husband, and father he had become, and that Prince Philip would be equally proud of the legacy they were leaving in his capable hands. The Queen also asked to see each of her great-grandchildren one more time. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis were brought in individually, and she managed to speak a few gentle words to each of them. To George, who at 9 years old was beginning to understand his future role, she said that being a prince meant being kind to others and always trying to help when you could. To Charlotte, she whispered that she was beautiful inside and out, and that she should always remember to be brave and true to herself. To little Louis, she simply said that she loved him very much and would always be watching over him. The children, despite their young ages, seemed to understand the solemnity of the moment. They were gentle and quiet, giving their great-grandmother soft kisses on her forehead and telling her they loved her. Catherine guided these interactions with remarkable grace, ensuring that the children felt safe and loved while creating final memories that they would cherish forever. As the afternoon approached, Prince Harry finally arrived at Balmoral. The long journey from California had been emotionally exhausting, and he was visibly struggling with the reality that he might be too late. When he entered his grandmother's room, the Queen managed to open her eyes and smile at him. Despite their recent difficulties, the love between them was immediately apparent. Harry took her hand and spoke quietly to her, expressing his love and asking for her forgiveness for any pain he might have caused. The Queen's response was everything Harry needed to hear. In a voice barely above a whisper, she told him that there was nothing to forgive, that she understood his choices even when she might not have agreed with them, and that her love for him had never wavered. She asked him to take care of his family and to remember that no matter where his life took him, he would always be her beloved grandson and a member of this family. The reunion between William and Harry at their grandmother's bedside was emotionally charged, but ultimately healing. Faced with the imminent loss of the woman who had been a constant source of love and stability in their lives, their recent disagreements seemed less important than their shared grief and their grandmother's wish for family unity. They stood together, supporting each other as they prepared to say their final goodbye to the woman who had shaped both of their lives in countless ways. As evening approached, the Queen's condition continued to decline, but she remained surrounded by love and comfort. The family took turns reading to her from her favorite prayers and poems, playing music she loved, and simply talking to her about happy memories they had shared over the years. The atmosphere was peaceful and filled with a sense of completion, as if her long life of service was coming to its natural conclusion in exactly the way it should, surrounded by the people she loved most. Princess Anne, who had arrived earlier that day, sat quietly beside her mother, reflecting on their special relationship. As the only daughter, and had often been her mother's closest confidant, and Their bond had only grown stronger over the years. The Queen had always admired his no-nonsense approach to royal duties and her dedication to her charitable work. Now, in these final hours, and provided a calm and steady presence, helping to coordinate the family's needs while ensuring her mother's comfort. The Queen's longtime staff members were also allowed to say their goodbyes. Her personal dresser, her private secretary, and her closest protection officers, people who had served her faithfully for decades, were invited to pay their respects. These individuals had been more than employees. They had been companions and friends who had shared in the daily rhythms of her extraordinary life. Their tears and words of gratitude added another layer of love to the farewell taking place in that peaceful Scottish castle. As the sun began to set over the Balmoral estate, casting long shadows across the grounds where the Queen had walked and played for more than 70 years, her breathing became even more shallow and peaceful. The family gathered closer, holding her hands, touching her face gently, and continuing to whisper words of love and gratitude. Prince Charles held one hand while William held the other, connecting 3 generations in a final moment of profound intimacy. The Queen's last conscious moments were spent looking into the faces of her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Though she could no longer speak, her eyes conveyed everything they needed to know: her love for them, her pride in their accomplishments, her faith in their futures, and her peace with her own life's completion. The love in that room was almost tangible, a testament to the bonds that had sustained this family through decades of public service, personal challenges, and the unique pressures of royal life. As evening deepened into night, Queen Elizabeth II passed away peacefully at Balmoral Castle. Surrounded by the family she loved more than anything else in the world. Her final breath came as naturally as a gentle sigh, and, in that moment, the longest reigning monarch in British history completed her remarkable journey from young princess to beloved grandmother, having touched millions of lives through her unwavering commitment to duty, service, and love. The immediate aftermath of her passing was marked not by chaos or confusion, but by the same grace and dignity that had characterized her entire life. The family remained together, supporting one another through their grief while beginning the complex process of honoring her memory and continuing the work she had dedicated her life to accomplishing. The woman who had been the anchor of their family, the symbol of their nation, and an inspiration to people around the world had left them with an extraordinary legacy of love, service, and unshakable grace. In the quiet moments after her passing, as the family began to process their loss, it became clear that while they were saying goodbye to Queen Elizabeth the monarch, they were also celebrating the life of Elizabeth the woman, a devoted wife, loving mother, cherished grandmother, and faithful servant who had given everything she had to the people and causes she held dear. Her final gift to her family was the peaceful, loving way she had chosen to leave them, creating a memory of grace that would sustain them through the difficult days ahead. In the immediate hours following Queen Elizabeth's peaceful passing, Balmoral Castle became a sanctuary of shared grief and quiet reflection. The family remained together through the night, finding comfort in each other's presence and in the memories they had created during those final precious days. Prince Charles, now King Charles III, bore the weight of his new responsibilities with dignity, but in those private moments, he was simply a son mourning the loss of his beloved mother. William found himself stepping naturally into a supportive role, helping to coordinate family needs while processing his own profound grief. The training his grandmother had given him over the years proved invaluable as he helped manage the complex emotions and logistics that followed her passing. But beyond his royal duties, he was grappling with the personal loss of the woman who had been his anchor, his guide, and his greatest source of wisdom about balancing duty with family life. Catherine emerged as a source of strength for the entire family during these difficult hours. Her natural compassion and grace under pressure helped everyone navigate their grief while ensuring that the children felt secure and loved. She understood instinctively how to honor the Queen's memory while helping the family begin to heal. Her ability to create moments of comfort and normalcy for the great-grandchildren was particularly appreciated, as it allowed the adults to process their emotions while knowing the children were being cared for with love and understanding. Prince Harry's presence during these final hours proved to be profoundly healing for the family. Despite the tensions of recent years, the shared experience of losing their beloved grandmother reminded everyone of the bonds that truly mattered. Harry's genuine grief and his obvious love for the Queen helped bridge some of the divides that had developed, creating space for the kind of reconciliation the Queen had always hoped to see. His reunion with his family in their shared sorrow began a process of healing that would continue in the months to come. The children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, were remarkable in their understanding and composure during this difficult time. Catherine and William had prepared them as much as possible for what was happening, explaining that Great-Granny was very old and sick and would soon go to heaven to be with Great-Grandpa Philip. The children's innocent questions and observations often provided moments of unexpected comfort to the grieving adults, reminding them that love and life continue even in the face of loss. As dawn broke over Balmoral on the day after the Queen's passing, the family began the process of sharing their loss with the world. The announcement of her death would soon trigger an unprecedented outpouring of grief and love from people around the globe, but in those quiet morning hours, it remained a private family matter. They spent time sharing favorite memories, looking through photographs, and supporting each other through the initial shock of their new reality. The Queen's private apartments at Balmoral told the story of a life lived fully and with purpose. Family photographs covered every surface, showing decades of birthdays, holidays, and quiet family moments. Her desk contained handwritten letters she had been working on, personal notes to friends and family members, and the voice recordings she had been making for her loved ones. These intimate details painted a picture of a woman who, despite her public role, had always put family relationships at the center of her personal world. In the days that followed, as the family prepared to return to London and begin the formal process of mourning and celebration of the Queen's life, they discovered the full extent of her final preparations. She had spent her last weeks writing personal letters to each family member, sharing memories, expressing pride in their accomplishments, and offering guidance for their futures. These letters would become treasured possessions, providing comfort and wisdom for years to come. William's letter from his grandmother was particularly meaningful, filled with her thoughts about his future role as king and her complete confidence in his ability to serve with wisdom and compassion. She wrote about the importance of balancing duty with family life, something she felt she had not always managed perfectly in her own early years as queen. She encouraged him to learn from her experiences while creating his own path, always keeping love and service as his guiding principles. Catherine received a letter that moved her to tears, filled with the Queen's gratitude for the joy and stability she had brought to the family. The Queen wrote about watching Catherine grow into her role as a future Queen consort with natural grace and authentic warmth. She shared her appreciation for how Catherine had embraced royal duties while never losing sight of her role as a mother and wife. The letter concluded with advice about maintaining personal happiness while serving others, wisdom that Catherine would carry with her throughout her life. For Harry, the Queen's letter was particularly healing, filled with understanding and unconditional love despite their recent difficulties. She acknowledged the challenges he had faced living in the public eye and expressed her support for his desire to create his own path. Most importantly, she assured him that no matter where life took him, he would always be her beloved grandson and a cherished member of the family. The letter helped heal wounds that had been painful for years. The impact of the Queen's death extended far beyond the royal family. As news of her passing spread around the world, an extraordinary outpouring of grief and gratitude began. People from all walks of life shared stories about how the Queen had touched their lives, whether through brief personal encounters, her decades of public service, or simply the stability and continuity she had represented throughout their own lives. The formal period of mourning that followed provided opportunities for the nation and the Commonwealth to express their love and gratitude for the Queen's service. But for the royal family, the most meaningful tributes were often the smallest ones: flowers left by school children, handwritten notes from ordinary citizens, and stories shared by people who had been helped by the Queen's charities and patronages over the decades. William found himself particularly moved by the response from young people around the world, many of whom had never known a time when the Queen was not on the throne. Their messages of sympathy and their understanding of what her loss meant to the royal family personally, beyond her constitutional role, showed him that the monarchy's future was in good hands with a generation that understood both tradition and the need for evolution. The Queen's state funeral became a global event, watched by billions of people around the world. But for the family, the most powerful moment came not during the grand ceremony at Westminster Abbey, but during the private family burial service at Windsor Castle. It was there, in the simple chapel where she had worshipped for decades, that they said their final personal goodbye to the woman who had been the center of their world. Prince George, as the eldest great-grandchild and future king, showed remarkable composure throughout the funeral proceedings. His understanding of the significance of the moment, combined with his obvious love for his great-grandmother, provided a powerful symbol of continuity and hope for the future. Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, despite their young ages, conducted themselves with dignity that would have made their great-grandmother proud. In the months following the Queen's death, the royal family began to find their new rhythm without her constant presence. King Charles stepped into his role with the wisdom and preparation she had given him over decades, while William took on increased responsibilities as heir to the throne. The family dynamic shifted as they learned to support each other in new ways while honoring the Queen's memory through their continued service. Catherine's role evolved as well, as she became a senior working royal supporting the new king while preparing for her own future role as queen consort. The grace and authenticity she had shown during the Queen's final days and funeral proceedings established her as a respected and beloved member of the royal family in her own right. Her ability to connect with people while maintaining royal dignity embodied many of the qualities the Queen had valued most. Perhaps the most significant long-term impact of the Queen's peaceful passing and the grace with which her family handled their grief was the renewed sense of unity it created within the royal family. Harry's return for the funeral and the shared experience of loss began a process of healing that continued in the months that followed. While challenges remained, the foundation of love and shared purpose that the Queen had instilled in her family proved strong enough to bridge divides and create new possibilities for understanding. The Queen's greatest legacy was not in the constitutional changes she oversaw or the modernization of the monarchy during her reign, though these were significant. Her greatest gift to her family and her people was the example she set of living with grace under pressure, of serving others with dedication and humility, and of maintaining dignity and compassion even in the most difficult circumstances. As the first year after her passing drew to a close, the royal family had found ways to honor her memory while moving forward with their own lives and duties. They carried with them the lessons she had taught them about service, about family, and about the importance of staying connected to the people they served. Her voice recordings, her letters, and, most importantly, the example she had set through her own life continued to guide them. The moment of grace that defined the Queen's farewell, the peaceful way she left her family, surrounded by love and expressing her own love until the very end, became a source of strength and inspiration for millions of people around the world. It showed that even in facing death, it was possible to maintain dignity, express love, and create lasting memories that would sustain those left behind. Queen Elizabeth II's final gift to her family and to the world was a demonstration that true royal grace comes not from ceremony or protocol, but from love freely given and received, from service offered with a generous heart, and from the courage to remain true to one's deepest values, even in life's most challenging moments. Her farewell touched every heart because it was authentically human, genuinely loving, and profoundly graceful, a perfect reflection of the remarkable woman she had been throughout her extraordinary life.